morning, friends, and welcome to another edition of Unlock Brand with Bradford. Bradford is a 30-year-old licensing firm which operates out of New York, London, and India. And we've been working with many different IPs to really help them in terms of unlocking their and leveraging their brand to multiple categories. Unlock Brand is a series we've started to really understand deeper into each of the category, and every time we take one edition and one particular vertical. And one of the verticals which is favorite to me and actually favorite of world, I mean everybody, is sports licensing. And for last 15, 20 years, we are all trying to really see the maths out of the sports licensing in India, while we say that, this is one of the topmost categories, contributes about 11% globally in the business. And there are few companies which would actually be the front runners of this. India has been a extremely one sport dominated country, and there also we have seen licensing has mixed responses and so on and so forth. So today is a very special, moment where we would talk about sports licensing in large, and I have a special guest, Siddharth, who is a AVP with one of the most successful licensing programs in the world, which is NBA. And welcome, Siddharth. Welcome to Unlock Brand. And so, Siddharth, we will start with you. And also, I've joined with my another colleague, Vatsal, who works out of our Delhi office. And Vatsal leads, a special vertical in licensing, Bradford, which is, we call the licensing development program, which means we work with a lot of emerging brands where we unlock their IPs, especially a lot of homegrown brands. We'll talk about that also. So, Siddharth, starting with you, what do you see this and your journey in terms of sports licensing? And let's start with a general viewpoint. What you would have, is it coming on the right lines? Do you really see the tipping point around the corner where we all wanted to see that this whole licensing would start working in a big way in sports? And which are the 3 or 4 or 5 bottlenecks which you always get frustrated or things of that? So let's set some perspective on overall the industry of sports licensing, especially in the Indian front. And you can also mention about some of the global practices which you saw, in your learning, and particularly we were talking about NBA, and if you want to really touch upon the NBA also. So over to you, Siddharth.
No, sure. So to begin with, thank you so much for having me. It's always great to catch up with all of you all in this virtual environment, which is different, but all the well. And not just because it gives me an opportunity to share my thoughts, my learnings, but I actually land up learning a lot more myself, from you all in these interactions. So thanks once again for having me on. Sports licensing. So sports, to begin with, is very close to my heart. I've been a competitive sportsman through the early part of my life, and then hence, through my passion, joined the sports industry. On the licensing side, I would say sports licensing, take about 12 odd years ago, didn't really exist at all. There was licensing at that time meant entertainment IP only, and nothing beyond that. If you remember, even something as simple as getting a sports brand's logo on the Indian cricket team's kit, that only started once the deal moved into the hands of Nike. Before that, I remember I was in Adidas, and Adidas used to make that kit, but neither did the negotiation of getting my logo on the kit never happened. BCCI didn't value it. Adidas didn't push it hard enough. So it's a very different scenario from then to now. Right now, sports licensing is definitely very much arrived. It's fast growing, and what you mentioned, India often is termed as a single sport country, but over the past 10 odd years, you can say India has certainly moved to a more of a multi-sport positioning. Not just in terms of the fan following that Indians have among Indians that is there for global sports, but also we all know the amount of local sports leagues across a very, very wide variety of sports, things that we would not have even thought about in the past, have emerged along these years. So definitely that is a big change. Having said that, what I've noticed, the reality of the sports licensing market in India is that even till today, even after these 10, 12 years of sports growing, the licensing space, the merchandising space is still dominated by global IPs, by global leagues and global teams. And this is built on decades of legacy. This is built on that, cool factor where Indians Indian fans love to wear their favorite team's merchandise because they gives them a certain coolness, gives them a certain additional, attributes to their personality. They are more popular with their friends. They, the girls in the colleges like them more, those kind of things. So this has definitely been dominated by the global leagues. Indian leagues, I believe, while they're doing really well, from a broadcast point of view, from a sponsorship point of view, I think on the licensing side, they still have a long way to go to establish their brand enough. I think because in the merchandising space, your brand has to be established strong enough to get consumers to proudly wear you on their sleeve, even when they are not in the arena, even when they are not watching on TV, and even in the off season of the league. That's when you've really arrived. So I think that's the next step that the Indian leagues have yet to take.
Absolutely, I think there's a big differentiator in what we call a little bit on a promotional licensing, which happens when the sport is on and you push the product and there's a little bit of a excitement out there and people would just buy. But the long-term programs can never be done if unless and until there is a bigger aspiration. And this used to be very surprising to me when I look at people wearing a Manchester a T-shirt on in the clubs and things of that nature, but they're not wearing so much of our favorite sport, an IPL. And so if you see from a viewership or viewpoint to really conversion on the market is very different. Or NBA, a lot of people would wear, but they would essentially the sport viewership would have a difference. So it's a very big conflict which is going on from what I call from a viewership to really becoming an aspirational brand for people to wear it on as a fashion label or any other merchandise. So there's a big shift, and this is something which is my next question is what are the critical 3 or 4 or 5 things which you would say a lot of these international leagues are able to do, and what is missing in the, so to say, Indian leagues? And there are 67 leagues in India now, which are available. And in the 67 leagues, I don't think even 60 of them, I wouldn't have even a licensing program going on, which is, I mean, while they would say they have a program, but there's nothing which is going on. And we have also attempted few, and we've realized in Bradford also that not so much of traction really comes in. People, I mean, especially the top retailers, online players, they don't want to look at this. They're always asking, "What give us an international league?" And that does very well. I mean, I've long time I did a big program for Wimbledon, and that I surprised me that there is a more traction for we rather did a program for a jeweler for a Wimbledon, and they created series of the charms, Wimbledon charms and things of that which you would wear. So to me, that was a very unique to see that that kind of a program can run in India, but not so much on on an Indian league. So what is the 3 or 4 things which you would say creates a aspiration for a sports licensing?
I'd say the league and the teams need to really clearly define what do they stand for. What is their brand ethos, what is their brand positioning, what is the kind of consumer that they are looking to target. I think that is very, very important, and very importantly, beyond just the sport. Because if you're focused only on the sport aspect of that team or that league, then you will only appeal to that hardcore sports fan. You have to get well beyond that, get from the court to the street, get into that whole lifestyle space, and then create the right brand positioning in that space for that casual fan, curious fan, or even a non-fan to adopt you as a merchandise, adopt your merchandise. I can say very safely, very proudly that there are a lot of consumers of NBA merchandise in India who may not necessarily be NBA fans to begin with, but they know about the NBA, they know it's cool, they know it adds a certain oomph to their personality. That's why they buy the merchandise. Once they buy the merchandise, they start talking with their friends. Oh, did you catch the game yesterday? You're wearing that particular T-shirt. They're like, nahi yaar, ab to mere ko at least game dekhna chalu karna chahiye. And they get into fandom via the other route, via merchandise. So I'll give you an example from the NBA's point of view. See, the NBA is by far the pinnacle basketball league in the world. In fact, there are so many leagues globally and especially in India who have actually borrowed best practices from the NBA. Whether it's on content creation and presentation, whether it's on consumer experiences in arena and at home, even on league structure and league operations, there are so many best practices from the NBA that have been adopted. But again, the NBA is way more than just the sports league. over these many decades that we've been around, we've created ourselves into a lifestyle icon. We influence entertainment, we influence music and fashion. We actually define pop culture and youth trends in many countries that we operate. So that's a, that's a very, very different positioning. So we, in a way, we say we extend, from the court to the street. And around the world, NBA is known to be out and out Americana. If you think about the NBA, you think American, that Americana brand itself has so much of a cachet, so much of a demand. NBA kind of feeds off that as well. It is this side of the NBA that lends to that wider appeal. The appeal beyond that, like I mentioned, the hardcore sports fan, etc. So what we've done in India is actually you're right. In India, in terms of basketball participation, in terms of viewership, it's good, but it's not great, and it's definitely nowhere compared to what cricket is, right? And is a long, long way to even get close to that. But this lifestyle positioning, this pop culture positioning, is what we've leveraged a lot to build successful programs in the licensing and merchandising space. So, be it our NBA fanwear apparel range with Sudhiti Industries is one of our key licensees, where we are offering the widest collection of apparel across kids and adults, with a focus on young, vibrant, bold designs, etc. So we've basically caught the youth with that. We've not created any performance product at all in that entire range. That is only lifestyle, only casual. That's only for you to show your fandom. We about 2 years ago did a deal with NBA on NBA sneakers with Myntra, because there is a burgeoning sneaker culture and kind of streetwear craze in the country. Our fans wanted, many of our fans, like I said, don't necessarily play basketball, but they want to show their fandom. So sneakers was the right thing to do, and that's been a phenomenal success. We've got in about the first 18 months, we sold about 150,000 pairs of NBA sneakers, and this is just e-commerce. So we've not even really tapped the offline space. So all of this is basically because of the brand extension, well beyond just the sports positioning. And frankly, why just licensing merchandising? We connect with our fans even on areas like music and entertainment. We work with JioSaavn, for example. We've inserted ourselves in some Bollywood movies as well. So there are many platforms outside of just the sports league.
Yeah, absolutely, and right, you rightly said, and this is very different to how the licensing evolved in say mature markets like US or UK and things of that nature, and what is happening in the developed world. So developed world, it becomes a very different approach to it. As you said, it's not really the true fans, which would come only from watching the sport or growing up on sport. They are actually people who adapt a lifestyle. So they see this more as a lifestyle rather than just following a sport. And that's where it surprises everybody and one of the areas which I really felt that when you look at sport in US, it's actually when it starts going to your school and your universities and things like that, when you start following a particular thing that becomes a part of your club structure, and then you continue to follow all your life, and that's where your culture would really start happening, and that's where your involvement with a particular brand would really be, and then you will just become a fan and continue to possess everything that needs to be done. But India, our developing world is absolutely different. The approach is absolutely not like that, because there's really no original fan, so to say, and everybody's just started watching something more from entertainment or following that entire thing. So you really don't have a true fan, so to say, available. And that's one of the areas which I remember long time when NBA was planning to come to India and thinking of doing it. And I had a leadership meeting with the entire leadership team at the NBA. And they said, look, we would like to start a program with school kids, rather than they were doing some program with Mahindra. And that was actually to really create a culture of a basketball and build from there. And they were, and very clearly I saw the message, and he said, look, if you really want to bring in a sporting culture and really build from there and build the whole NBA, get one guy who plays for it. If you get one person, a kid who comes out of India and plays for NBA, you will see that the day the sport would be really available in India and everybody would start doing it. And the same thing happened in China when the two brothers really came out and then they started playing, and then the NBA was really taken up in that. So there is always a following, and a fan following comes from that. That's a very slow cycle. You need to seed that and continue to nurture that from a school age to getting into universities, to getting into their as a lifestyle, and then that is a slow cycle. But aspiration, obviously, you can build from a lifestyle brand. So any comments you have on that? I mean, is there anything which NBA is doing differently to approach this to really get the original fan flowing also?
Great point. So we've actually, you're absolutely right. That discussion that happened many years ago with you, and maybe we should thank you also for, contributing to that decision. So we decided very early that we had to build fans for the future, and we had to do it via a pyramid structure. It couldn't be done with one program. So that's what we built along the lines. We have a 4-tier pyramid now. At the bottom, we have what we call this Reliance Foundation Junior NBA. We do it in partnership with the Reliance Foundation, which is our grassroots program. And that is the largest grassroots program that is running in the country right now. We started it in 2013 with some 2 cities and 240 schools. This year, the way it's grown, we are in 34 cities across the country, more than 7,900 schools, and more than 10 million kids are learning basketball through this Junior NBA program. So that's the scale at which we've grown. And it's free for all the schools. We are not charging anything. It's basically funded entirely by the program itself. All you have to do is you go to sign up for it, and we give you a certain curriculum. Our coaches come and train you all, etc. And basically you stick to that curriculum for a 3-month period every year. Your PT period gets converted into a basketball period with learning with the NBA. So that's the grassroots program. Then we realized that because it's been 6-7-year-old program, so a lot of kids who are going through that program again and again, because the number of schools keep increasing, they are getting better than other kids in their class. Now they want to get to the next level. So then about 3 years ago, we introduced the NBA basketball schools, which is basically a pay-to-play, a tuition-based program where you get advanced training to get better at the game. This now is in about 27 centers across the country in about 9 odd cities. Yeah, 9 cities. Yeah. And that's, taking it now to the next level. Then we have a scouting program, a talent scouting program with our partner ACG, which is a massive pharma company. So it's called the ACG NBA Jump. This program has open tryouts across multiple regions in the country. We have our scouts going to all the state level and district level, under 12, under 14, under 16 tournaments, spot talent. We also invite social media entries. So if you're in some corner of the country where you couldn't reach us or we couldn't reach you, but you have the talent, shoot your video with, doing your skills and drills, send it to us, and you get picked that way as well. And through this entire scouting program, we have regional camps and then a national camp. And then the select few get picked for a scholarship at the NBA Academy, which is again a full scholarship, fully NBA funded program, where the elite cream de la creme basketball talent, young basketball talent of the country gets nurtured, honed to make them international level players. We take care of their education, their stay, their health, strength and conditioning, nutrition, of course, their basketball training, international competitions. So we take them to other countries to play international competitions there to to get their level to an international stage rather than being the best in the country. Because once you're best in the country, how do you grow further? You face tougher competition. And this program has actually delivered a lot already. So already, you might be aware that the NBA has a minor league called the G League, which is our developmental league, where a lot of the draft prospects kind of develop their game before they get NBA ready. Out of the ACG Jump NBA program, two players have already made it to the G League. In fact, one happened just recently, a couple of weeks back. A person called Principal Singh, who's from Punjab. He was a part of the ACG NBA Jump program, then moved to the NBA Academy in India. Then he got too good for the Indian Academy, so we sent him to the Australia Academy so that he could get even better. And now he's the first guy to make it from the Academy program and the ACG Jump program to the G League. So he'll, once travel opens up, he will be traveling to the US and start training there. Apart from that, this year itself, we've sent 7 kids, girls and boys, through our academy programs. We've got them scholarships to colleges in the US. So not only are we developing talent at the professional level, but also getting them, improving their careers, using scholarships in basketball, etc., to get them there. So all of these kids are from our academy program who've spent 2-3 years with us, got better, and got scholarships in the US. So this is something that we're doing definitely to build fans for the future, but also build the level of the game. The more people play, the more they'll follow, the more NBA becomes popular in the country.
And this is what I think I always see a big differentiation in terms of how these international leagues have approached the business, because and that this long-term thinking, and it sometimes is a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year vision, which really entire thing. And this is one of the areas which I think Indian leagues have to understand. If they are really looking at a horizon not less than 10-year cycle, they would not be able to look at Kabaddi. It is a good success, but what I'm saying is a very, very good success from a viewership viewpoint, from a audience viewpoint. But how do you really shift that into, licensing is very difficult in that, right? So
yeah,
how do you build one aspiration in Kabaddi, which looks like a very rural sport? Even if you look at India-wide, if you speak even larger audience, there is a much larger audience available, but very little has been done on the ground. So there is a disconnect from a sporting property to really what is happening on the ground. If these leagues are able to understand that how they marry these two things, then I think the programs would be much more sustainable in times to come. Otherwise, something interesting would come up and take over that relationship outside cricket. Cricket, I think, has been is a very big phenomenon. It's lived all there because everybody has played it. Everybody plays in schools, colleges. So that's why the genuine fan following really comes there.
True.
And there, I think there is maybe an execution, I would say, is a bigger issue there rather than the opportunity in the cricket side. But other places, I think there's a lot to be done and a lot to be learned from NBA in terms of how the licensing program from a long viewpoint is really done. So I'll now like to invite Vatsal to take a few questions with you. Vatsal, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Siddharth. So, Siddharth, thank you so much for sharing all this insights about NBA. That's something which I would really appreciate. The way NBA has set up, the world-class examples when it comes to licensing, actually. Okay. So, my questions will be from the business point of view, Siddharth. When it comes to licensing and when it comes to the product development part, what do you feel that when it comes to the Indian merchandising, and because the aspiration has always been a lifestyle. Every sports league, every sports club or event that we look forward to as a licensing opportunity, they have that kind of aspiration to get into a lifestyle merchandising and all of that. But have you seen that kind of issues or the challenges when it comes to the development of design and of the merchandises?
No, the NBA hasn't, and for a simple reason, the NBA has its own offices in India. So we have dedicated teams managing every key function of our business. We have the talent and the resources to drive and oversee, the entire. So we have a dedicated team for merchandising and licensing, dedicated team for sponsorship, dedicated for content, for marketing, basketball operations, which is the whole pyramid structure I just mentioned to you. So we have all this in place, and hence we've never had any issues in terms of driving and overseeing really good product development. That is in keeping with the NBA brand. And I myself come from from a former product development background, so I often wear my old hat and contribute into the product development cycle in a very deep way. Having said that, I think two types of sports leagues or teams will face this challenge. One would be global properties who don't have a presence in India, so they don't have their staff here, etc. And so neither, on one hand, neither do they have their own staff here, nor have they engaged with a good licensing agency to represent them in India. So someone like Bradford, where Bradford takes on the onus of building that brand, building the brand extensions, and creating licensing opportunities. If as a global brand, neither are you here nor do you have a good agency representing you here, you will definitely face that challenge. The second the type that will face this challenge are local leagues who are who, while like Gaurav mentioned, are doing very well on the broadcast side, but who haven't really created resources dedicated for that licensing and merchandising side of the business. This this vertical needs specialized licensing professionals to understand the brand and turn it into a consumer product. Take a sports brand and turn it into a consumer product brand. And if you've not invested in those resources and created that vertical, you will really face those challenges in delivering success on license.
Right. Great. Definitely. Siddharth, I personally feel that when it comes to the entire, the look and feel of the merchandise, it should be, having that kind of an essence which should connect the, the fan base, the brand, and the league actually, or the sports actually. Okay. Because when I talk about the sporting fan or the, so it is available across, right from the tier 2 to tier 3 cities as well. Okay. But the availability is something which is not actually there as of now as well. So when it comes to, the rise of all this e-commerce and m-commerce players, so how do you think, that has made us, the entire partnerships, be easy to reach that kind of a, consumer base who are, residing in a tier 3 cities as well, who are big fan of NBA, but he has never got a chance to wear a t-shirt or a jersey of NBA.
Well, digital commerce is a boon. It's a massive blessing to the industry as a whole, but definitely to the sports licensing industry, and especially for the NBA. And not just in lockdown times like this, because obviously now it's given people access which they otherwise don't have in the offline space, but even otherwise. So let me give you a little bit of background. NBA merchandise is available in approximately about 700 stores across India. It's a good mix of flagship Nike stores to leading department stores like Shoppers Stop, Lifestyle, Central, to sporting goods stores, toy stores, gaming stores, so on and so forth. So about 700 odd stores. But even such a wide retail spread is not enough to reach every fan that we have there. The NBA fan is there in literally every corner of the country. The usual suspects are obviously the Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, the big cities. But then there are fans in Dehradun and Ludhiana. There are fans from Calicut to Kolkata. There are fans in Mizoram, Sikkim, Dharamshala even. I'll share an anecdote. When I joined the NBA, in the very first year when we were reviewing our e-commerce numbers and looking at the geographical spread in terms of by value, which regions are selling the most. In the top 10, there were 2 names that I had to Google. I didn't know where they were. So in the top 10 by value, there was one far-flung place in the Northeast, because obviously that consumer is very world aware and very they're usually early adopters to fashion, so that made a lot of sense. And the other one, I don't even remember where it was, but the fact that I had to Google them shows that every consumption and fans can come from every corner. So that definitely is helped a lot by e-commerce. That's the best way to reach them all. Having said that, working with e-commerce now over the past 6 odd years, that NBA has had their own e-commerce, own store in partnership with Jabong and Myntra, etc. It's been a mixed experience so far. I'll be very honest. The reach is excellent. High volume and value sales have added significantly to our business. It's a very strong revenue driving pillar for us now. The endless aisle that e-commerce offers, allows us to offer a wider variety of products to our consumers. There are no limits like, shelf space limits that offline retail typically has. So that also works very well for the consumer, because now they have a wider range to choose from. The NBA has 30 teams. If you go to a offline retailer, they'll probably keep top 6, top 8 at most. E-commerce has all 30. Why should we not service that NBA fan who is a fan of that 30th number team, right? So e-commerce is the way to reach them. So that really helps. On the other hand, one concern we have faced with e-commerce, and this is more recent, is clutter. And I don't mean clutter of e-commerce portals. It's in fact, e-commerce portals have kind of consolidated over the past few years, and now there are a few big ones left. Now, what's happened, unfortunately, is that the same thousands of brands that are available on one are available on all the others as well. And in this clutter, this is the cluttered space now that the consumer is shopping in. And in this clutter, consumer is also kind of, having a difficulty to really look for what he really wants, he or she really wants. And in this cluttered space of brands, it's also been a challenge to get the right prioritization and get the right attention and regular engagement with the e-commerce partners. Because, हर ब्रांड का आज ये ब्रांड का डे चल रहा है, कल वो ब्रांड का डे चल रहा है, तो एनबीए का डे अच्छा अभी नहीं, it'll come 3 weeks later. So in this situation, we are not able to deliver the best level of consumer experience that we want to, because we're always kind of battling with for space, mind space, etc. with the partner. So on this front, I think now that consolidation has happened, now the big e-commerce portals have clearly established themselves and their credentials. I think it's time now portals started to differentiate, to really start defining what each one of them stands for, and then curate the right brand mix and the right consumer experience accordingly. So like if a portal says, I want to stand for sports, performance sports, lifestyle sports, sports licensing, everything. One portal says, I will sell lifestyle and all that, but my core ethos will be, I will have the best sports selection compared to all the portals. Similarly, another brand might want to say, I want to stand for entertainment. Another portal might say, I want to stand for entertainment. This is how they start differentiating. Then the consumer goes with a clear, a clear passing. If this is what I want, here is where I go, and I'll find the best selection there. I think that needs to be done.
Yeah, very, very well. Like that's a overall consumer journey. It moves from unorganized to organized, organized to specialized, and specialized to personalized. And I feel that when this starts moving, and which is now in US, people just don't want to buy merchandise. They want something which is personalized to them. So there's a lot of work is going on from this because they're already specialized as cheap. But India, I think we will go to the first leg of being specialized. As you rightly said, people would take leadership and say, I'm a specialized vehicle for bringing all the things what you need from especially for a sports fan viewpoint. And this can go even more specialized and say people want to really see the space. You have a full, experience of NBA or so. So they have to be much larger partnerships. And these companies would also start evolving. I think they all wait for the volume to trigger. Whenever the particular category, the volume start triggering, the much bigger partnership starts evolving in their measurement structure. So I think that would start to a very good, valid point you have really put. And I think this will also go further to become a very specialized, where people would, personalized, where people would like to buy their merchandise the way they want to do that.
True.
Right. So another thing, Siddharth, what I would like to understand from the Indian sports licensing point of view, as we know, IPL has been the flag bearer in terms of the licensing in India. They started off in 10 years back, and today they have a huge licensing program. But if I talk about the individual teams which are there under IPL, not all of them were able to set up that successful licensing programs, apart from a couple of. Okay. If I talk about like Mumbai Indians or like say Chennai Super Kings or Royal Challengers Bangalore, in fact, for that matter, they really developed a very good licensing program. In fact, the talents also came up very well, right from Virat Kohli to a couple of them. So what do you think, Siddharth, when it comes to the licensing, what should be taken care in mind for a sports league or a, event to be be the fan base or the talent, or how that has to be described?
I think.
And also, I would add a question on this because I feel while I have a different view on what Vatsal is saying, I would say that from a licensing viewpoint, IPL is not so successful. I mean, I would
agree.
say. I feel that what they would have done in leveraging, their significant part of their franchisees' revenues would have actually come from licensing, and they're too overly dependent on sponsorship. And we have already seen the first reaction because now one of the big sponsors going away has put in a hole with every single franchisee because they were actually not sweating out. And I felt that because IPL became such a big success, the franchisees were not sweating out, and they were just following the sport, and they would get active for the 4 or 5 months when the sporting is really going to happen, and then they sleep. Fundamentally, because the dollar was so big in the sport itself, that the share everybody really enjoyed and everybody was happy. And I think the dollar would become more difficult to get from there, from a sponsorship point. And I think in next 3 years, this is going to be a huge problem because of what has happened in the COVID and other situations, the sponsorship dollar would go drastically down. And then I think these would have to really think through that how do they sweat out more and do what you're doing, 7,000 point of sales, try to make a $1 out of every single merchandise sold, and then the collective value would really come in. And I feel that it's a little bit of shame that why these companies have not really done that. And I would like to also hear from you, Siddharth, because you come from one of the most mature leagues and one of the most mature licensing program globally. What is a go-to-market timelines? Because this should run all year, because we see these companies, some of these leagues are only active for a few months and then they just vanish.
You took a lot of words out of my mouth. Absolutely, completely agree with you. What I didn't want to interject with Vatsal, but I also agree that the IPL, from a licensing and merchandising point of view, have done really nothing. They've not even scratched the surface. And I think a lot is because of the teams. The teams haven't really focused on building a brand outside of the sport. You're right. Mumbai Indians, uh, Chennai Super Kings, etc., are one of the few examples that have done it. Secondly, they've not done anything to stay relevant other than the 2 months when the IPL is live. So why should your fan care about you for the remaining 10 months in the year? They've never tried to figure that bit out. And which is why what happens is there is no wider lifestyle merchandising program from these teams at all. But even the most coveted product, which is the on-field jersey, even that, the general consumer sentiment is, यार 2 महीने के लिए तो league चलेगा. I'll maybe watch one game in the arena in those 2 months, and maybe a few games at home with friends. Otherwise, I'm sitting alone and watching. My last year's jersey looks very similar to this year's jersey. Why do I need to buy a new jersey for 2 months? Right? That is the thing that they need to fix. Obviously, from a duration of the league point of view, they can't. It's not in their hands. There is the cricket calendar that is so jam-packed. 2 months is all they get. But then, what are they doing to stay relevant throughout the year? That's something they really need to figure out to make this happen.
Absolutely, and I think a couple of things which you said in past, which is very relevant. That how do you really bring the lifestyle quotient to it, and how do you build the story which raise 365 days, and people have some value. You're going in the evening party to some place, and you don't want to. I mean, you were happy to wear a jersey and go to a friend's place or something like that. This can only happen if there is a much bigger story really coming out. And I also feel that sometimes the brand of IPL, these leagues, are actually, the stars become even more bigger. The players have become much bigger in the front, and the leagues have gone in behind. And one of the areas which I've really realized in other sporting leagues, especially international, the brand is much ahead than the player. So while it looks like they have popularity graphs and they have sometimes somebody is up and sometimes down, but the brand itself, the IP, is much ahead of that. So people love the IP. They don't really bother that who's really, and that was an opportunity for IPL, so to say. I mean, we're going too much in IPL, but that was an opportunity. But I think there is over dominance of sometimes the players, which actually takes the brand behind. So people are more following the Virat Kohli than the league he's playing, or they were following Dhoni at one point in time than the league he was playing, and things of that nature. So that also has to really see that franchisees have to really think through that, how they really bring the excitement in their own IP rather than just revolving around the brand. There's players which are in that thing. So this is one of the areas which has to sometimes delink yourself with the too much of a celebrity quotient of the players which are coming out. They can complement you, but if the story is around them, then it will always be short-lived story.
And I think Gaurav, that gets further complicated because of the IPL format, where every year there is an auction. Every year, apart from those handful of players the team will retain, the rest, the other players literally move around. So even if player X has built a credibility with Chennai for a year, next year he'll be somewhere else. So what do the fans do? It's very difficult to build a long-term, sustained fan following. So NBA also and many other leagues around the world have players moving around, but they have longer-term contracts, 3-year, 5-year, 7-year contracts. So even if you're at a time a particular star player in your team might be almost as big as your team itself in terms of brand value, but he's going to be around for 5 years. So you can really leverage that player's brand value for a 5-year period, and then when he leaves, the fans that you built for 5 years are not going to easily switch sides. But here, every year, if people keep moving, your fans are confused.
Yeah, good. There is
I've got.
which has come in. I'll just take one question from
Yeah,
Shrey.
yeah.
He wanted to talk about the piracy available in the market. I mean, we always touch about this point because, and do you face this happening with you, especially being a premium product, because a lot of people would bring in cheaper version of, on the entire thing and don't pay license fees, and you have a lot of counterfeits available in the market.
It is a problem that I'm sure every sports brand that is big enough will face. NBA faces it well. We have our legal team kind of being vigilant about these areas. Not just not just the team from India monitoring pirated products, but even the team from the US has legal agencies employed in India who kind of monitor all of this, and we send them cease and desist letters and stuff. And so far, wherever we've had unauthorized use of our IP, and this is not just physical products, it's also in gaming, etc. So, as an example, Dream 11 is our exclusive partner in the NBA fantasy space, and we've seen the other 100 odd other smaller fantasy players in the country once in a while will try to put in a team NBA logo, try to create an NBA team game, and we've got the right legal notices, etc., to stop them. It takes time. It's not that it is eliminated completely. It also takes time from when it germinates to when it is noticed to when it is action is taken and is stopped. But that is, I think, a part and parcel of every IP based program. Imitation is the best form of flattery. In fact, the more imitation happens, the more we get this implicit sense that we are getting bigger and bigger in the country. So we try our best to keep it at bay.
That there's one thing I would like to understand. I'll be going a bit back, when it is about the m-commerce and e-commerce we were talking about.
Yeah.
So if I talk about this, leading e-commerce players, be it Myntras and Flipkarts, so they have got close to about 20-25, their own private labels. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we are selling our stuff there, so don't you think, the styles can be tweaked upon and they can be used by their own private labels, and, they can be, and they have actually done that. They have, launched it close to about 20 labels with, such a competitive pricing, so people have forgotten what Woodland is selling, or, they have now started buying their own, Myntra's label actually. Okay. So have you ever thought, this can be, issue when, launching a merchandise with them or something like,
So this is a problem that has existed for generations, right? Earlier, it existed in the offline space as well, where any multi-brand retailer would bring in the big brands to initially build their brand value, to drive the walk-ins, drive consumers to them, and then eventually learn from the big brands what sells, etc., and have their own private label drive the larger volume of the business. This has been around. I mean, there's no point, pointing fingers at e-commerce. This has been around in retail throughout.
Yeah.
What I see, one area where official licensed merchandise helps is, if you have a lifestyle product, and I don't want to name brands, but just general lifestyle brands, right? And this particular gray T-shirt, this kind of a cut, and this kind of a silhouette, etc. If that brand sells for 1,000 rupees, very easy to for them to replicate in the private label and sell for half the price, because there is no IP involved that somebody can take objection to. This kind of a cut, this kind of silhouette is not something that you can really enforce legally. But when it comes to licensed merchandise, because a lot of the value of the product is in the graphic, in the branding, in the IP that is being used, you cannot recreate that same graphic without having the IP. So then, if somebody is replicating that product in their private label range using something very similar to that IP, that can be legally enforced and taken down. And if they're not using that IP, then there is very little kind of cannibalism that will happen. So I think that in such a scenario, having official licensed merchandise actually helps. It gives the brand, the manufacturer, the licensee that one additional safeguard, saying, I have the official license, nobody else can copy this like for like.
Siddharth, I have a question from one of the participants. So he's from European Football Club. So Hola, very interested when you mentioned, so this is Vincent Chen. Hola, very interested when you mentioned about build the brand out of sport. How do you think that sports team I'm representing in European Football Club can do to engage with public outside of its fans by merchandises?
So like I said, first of all, you need to create a brand value outside just the sport. That is not something that licensing can do. Licensing can help you leverage that. Licensing, like I gave you examples of the NBA, licensing can actually bring new fans to the sport through that conduit. But the demand for that licensed product has to be created by the core sports league, sports team itself, by going well beyond the core sports proposition. Uh, I mentioned a little while back, we've been very successful in kind of positioning ourselves as a lifestyle icon, as that pop culture driver in many countries. To a great extent, it is we are also helped by NBA, our star athletes who are doing so much more than just playing basketball. So our star athletes are acting in movies. They are cutting their own hip hop albums. They are dating the hottest actresses and models around the world. They are walking the ramp at the top fashion shows around the world. So they themselves are creating their persona way outside of. Kobe Bryant won an Oscar. Michael Jordan acted in Space Jam. LeBron James is leading Space Jam 2, which is going to come out next year. So they themselves are also doing so much. Similarly, the NBA does so much more with it. Like I said, we connect with our fans through music, through entertainment, well outside of merchandise. So when we do create that holistic aura around the brand, we have play zones, we have NBA museums, we have restaurants and cafes around the world. There is so much more to the NBA than just the league. Once you've created all of that, and it's hard work, Gaurav very rightly said, it's a long-term horizon. Once you create that entire aura around it, that's when you are in the consumer's eyes much more than just the sport, and that's when all the licensing opportunities really take off.
Absolutely.
This also is a big coming from the countries where they come from. So if you really see, NBA is very Americana. So it's very clearly a function of what life you really want. So there is a correlation of that. Even in European leagues, I see sometimes you don't follow the sport, you have no idea. Look at a lot of other sporting clubs, so to say, which have become very, very successful. And like, I'll give you an example. I used to handle one brand a long time back. Actually, I launched in 2004 in India called a Santa Barbara Polo Club. It's a small polo club in Santa Barbara.
Yes.
It doesn't have anything else. It's just about a small polo club. And we have many more in India. Polo Club, we have Delhi Polo Club, we have multiple other polo clubs which are much older, much active. And this club has nothing, because of the persona of this American Santa Barbara, which is an American lifestyle, very Californian lifestyle, and so on and so forth. Now they run 600 shops in China. They have multiple shops in Asia. So fundamentally, what I'm saying is that you're absolutely right. Sometimes the brand itself goes beyond that. And one of the unfortunate things we have done in our leagues in India, or in Indian clubs, there are a lot of sport clubs in India also, and very popular ones. We were trying to do a program with one of the old football clubs in Calcutta. They're actually among the two topmost. But what have they done? They've not really unlocked that value. So they've not really created this whole story around them and what really started. And I'm sure, Evan, that when people start understanding, why would you not do with the Jaipur Polo Club? So you can create a story around it, and people would wear it with pride and take it there. So there is a lot of work to be done. There is a club which I was working on, which is a Baroda cricket club, which is run by the Gaikwad family, which is used to be the rulers of that entire thing. They were actually the foundation for BCCI. So BCCI actually started from there. So Mr. Gaikwad, earlier actually was the first founding member of starting this BCCI as a club. It actually came out of that. So it has even more bigger heritage. But the unlocking has not been done. They've not unlocked that value. And if the people know the story and they understand the story, the whole structure, and then I think from our emotion, from our cultural background, our heritage, we will be also able to see much more value creation. So when the clubs come from Europe, you really see Italy or a France or a UK or the lifestyles around it, and so their aspirations also come along with them. Similarly, I think Indian clubs also have to really see through, and Indian sports leagues also have to see through that what is that unlocked value which is lying with them, which can go beyond even the sport.
Correct. And there is so much. Let's say you're a Mumbai-based club. Why can't you build the ethos of Mumbai? There are certain key characteristics of Mumbai. Why don't you build that into your brand value and hence appeal to people, appeal to fans of Mumbai culture, whatever Mumbai stands for, may not necessarily be fans of the sport at all. We've done this. We did a program with Jack and Jones a couple of years back. In fact, we got an award also. For the sports license of the year that year, where we did exactly that. We gave NBA IP to Jack and Jones and said, hey, here are the guardrails, but within these guardrails, make something out of this IP, which is what your fan is looking for. And one of the ranges they created was exactly this cityscape. So we had these massive cityscapes of Boston and Chicago and Los Angeles and New York, where the team logo was incidental. Those t-shirts I'm very sure were bought because of the cultural connect with New York, all of these iconic cities in the US. So definitely we should be doing a lot more of this.
So two things which have really come out of discussion today, in the sports licensing, you need to reinvest from a grassroots to build a long-term value for an IP, which NBA is trying to do. And there's a good learning from the vision of NBA in terms of how the leagues should really think through and how to set a foundation in a country to really create the culture of that sport and the brand and so on and so forth, which is a very long-term viewpoint. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when we talk about NBA, it will be a very different than when we do now, because there will be genuine fans, people who grown up on playing with NBA and so on and so forth. So there would be that transformation that takes time. But when you are on a short-term lifestyle goal, find or see that what kind of unlock value you have largely in the brand, and just not limit yourself from a sporting time. Go beyond that, build the story and extend that story. Any final remarks, Siddharth, before we close, and Vatsal to you?
Thank you so much. So that was really amazing, Siddharth. That was, actually that's something which is missing still in the Indian sports leagues and, a couple of football clubs and a couple of clubs and sporting events that we have in an Indian market, unless until we don't give that reason why somebody should buy that merchandise, or, we should don't give that kind of direction. Nobody is going to, work out that licensing extension actually. Okay. That was amazing, I believe, Siddharth, for this, and it was amazing having you. Okay. And we really look forward to have amazing sessions with you. And I hope that we are able to unlock a couple of really sports leagues and brands which are there in India, and we are able to launch a successful licensing programs with them. Okay.
Final words, Siddharth, from you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for summarizing it really well, Gaurav. Like I said, in one line, if I have to end it, I would say that the whatever the sports league or the club, it has to find a reason to be a part of the consumer's life across multiple aspects. If they give the consumer that reason, they pretty much hits it.
That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Siddharth. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys. Always great catching up.
Good to always have you and pick up your insight and your frank opinions. And I think there are very few also talent in sports licensing. And I think you are front runner of that. And hopefully a lot of people would take cue from you and also take this as a career, because I feel that talent is also very, very, very big missing point in India, so there is not too much of if you really go and handpick 10 people in India, which have actually understand sports licensing and part of the whole journey, you will not get it. So congratulations to be right man, right place, and continue to do good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We're learning something new every day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.